Hey everybody, welcome into it. The Volquest Mailbag Podcast here on this Thursday morning. I'm Eric Kane with Austin Price making a return. How you feeling?
Getting better every day, DC. Getting better. I mean,
I
my voice still sounds strong at points, and then at other times it's going to sound like, is he drunk? So
well,
Normal. What's your favorite flavor of Jello at this point in time? Are you a blackberry guy? Are you an orange guy?
I'm a strawberry guy.
Strawberry guy. All right.
well, I think I
Hey,
speak for
these are,
everybody when I'm glad to see you're back doing some work because it was
I
unacceptable
like
there.
Savage Passion Fruit Jello. My best.
Yeah, well,
Brent Ubbs,
that
Rob
made
Lewis.
that made its way back to the last day or two, Rob.
And I'm Eric Kane. Big thanks to our friends over Exterior Home Solutions who make this possible. Give them a call today for a free estimate, 865-524-5888. All right, we got a full bank of questions. We'll go ahead and dive into it with hyped. Understanding the offense itself entices playmakers. But has Kelsey Pope out-recruited his expectations thus far? He has answered any questions around his ability to recruit at a high level, Austin.
I mean, I wouldn't say that. I think he's off to a good start. I mean, you go back to a year ago. I mean, they have a nice eval, and let's give a lot of credit to, Kelsey Pope for standing on the table and the recruiting staff for helping kind of pinpoint Nathan Laycock. And then they obviously tried hard on several big time guys, weren't able to get them in the boat. You get JJ Harrell early in this process. They're in a good spot with Ryan Wingo. I think the fact that Tennessee throws for so many yards, put the receivers in position to be successful, it's going to help a guy like Kelsey Pope. And Kelsey Pope's super relatable. The moment that I had an in-depth conversation with JJ Harrell, not just kind of your normal, hey, where's this recruitment stand type thing, that's when it dawned on me, like, I think Tennessee can hold on to JJ Harrell long term because he resonates with Kelsey Pope. Kelsey Pope resonates with him. Similar backgrounds, similar upbringings, just kind of how they go about things. So again, I think he's only going to get better over time. I think right now he's still scratching the surface of what he can be as a recruiter. And again, it's about learning. I mean, until a year ago, he'd never recruited at the Power 5 level, and now all of a sudden he has.
Yeah, and I think it's about continuing to recruit more and more guys, having a bigger board. It was probably a little tight last year. And I think the one thing you see out of Kelsey Pope is that guys, as you mentioned, guys relate to him. The challenge is getting those guys to campus. And a year ago, he had some guys that related to him and had good conversations with him, Austin, but they didn't end up making it to campus for a visit. That's just to continue growth and to continue next step. And a good product from Tennessee is only going to enhance his ability to do that.
Nashville Vol 615, a question on Pro Day. With Pro Day approaching, that's March the 30th with the Combine going on this weekend. What Tennessee Pro Day performance in the past has stuck out to you? Is there anyone for any of you guys that kind of comes to mind?
Jamal Lewis. Back then, Tennessee had a policy where you could not go in and watch Pro Day. You had to stay out in the Hall of Fame area in the lobby. And so you had some agents and some people like that leaning through the window trying to see what happened. And family was allowed upstairs to watch. And when Jamal Lewis ran his 40, which was on that track was like a sub 4.44, it's like a 4.39 or some crazy number like that. You could hear the audible oohs and ahs through the door out into the lobby because he ran it at that, at the size he was running at. That's the one that jumps out to me because everybody thought a good time. Nobody thought that kind of time. And obviously it paid off big time for him.
We'll go to Vol by Grace. In your opinions, what is the appropriate response for Tennessee to have in the latest news from the NCAA on the football investigation? I hope to see our university go fully on the offense from a legal and public relations perspective, make the NCAA fight out this and open and show the inconsistency and hypocrisy of what it is.
I don't think you're going to see them do that, though. I think the only way they would go public with anything Hubbard is if the NCAA tried to take them in front of infractions and it did not go Tennessee's way. I think that at that point you might see them fight it tooth and nail because Tennessee right now is really the only school that's ever just said, hey, we're guilty. Here's all the evidence against us. Show mercy. Like that just never happens. And so, I think right now we're in that stage where they're still negotiating. That's still going on. And they're trying to get to a point to where, what's the NCAA willing to accept? I'm not sure the NCAA's ever said, hey, Tennessee, here's where you got to get to if we're going to accept this. Like, so Tennessee's still trying to figure out, what's the moving target. And, again, we talked about this on the board, and I think it is easier to do these in podcasts or videos because you can explain it a little easier. Tennessee was down 12 scholarships that first year. So it's easy, Hubbard, to give things that you weren't going to be able to fill that many spots anyways. And you kind of were where you were. And I think the NCAA knows that. And so I think they want Tennessee to give a little bit more. What's the number, though? Is it a couple more scholarships? Is it 6? Is it 4? Is it 2? What are they, and what's Tennessee willing to give? I think that's kind of where we're at right now. They try to work through it.
Yeah, Rob, you don't go scorched earth when there's possibility for a resolution still. And that I think that's the bottom line where Tennessee's at right now.
Well, and I'm, I think Tennessee's being, maybe I'm being naive. I think Tennessee's being polite about it. They're not going all Auburn right now. But, I mean, like, I think AP did a great job of explaining it. Like, Tennessee's like, hey, we give up 12 scholarships, and the NCAA is like, well, no, you really didn't give up anything because you weren't going to fill those spots. I mean, I think the NCAA, it feels to me like the NCAA is wanting to work with Tennessee because of everything they've done. But at the end of the day, they still want to have some sort of punitive action, as opposed to like you give it 12 scholarships that you couldn't fill. That's not punitive.
Yeah, after you had 30 people transfer out, you surrendered the 12 there. So I mean, but what does that what does that compromise look like? Can they get to that compromise? And I think that's and to be honest with you, I think both schools want to get to that compromise, because if you don't, and it has to go before committee, then I do think Tennessee changes their PR narrative about it. And I'm not sure the NCAA wants that PR narrative out there that Tennessee paid for the investigation. They paid for all the lawyers, and the lawyers from the NCAA got to sit in and listen to all of the interviews that were done by the third party firm. Tennessee fired everybody on their campus, and all of those types of things. I don't know that the NCAA wants the narrative out there that Tennessee was fully cooperative and they still got hammered. At the same time, too, the NCAA doesn't want the narrative out there that Tennessee said, hey, we're gonna cancel our tea time when it's raining 4.5 inches out there today, and you just accept that, and we're going to go on about business, which is kind of what I think some people view Tennessee's self-imposed punishment as, because it was an easy self-imposed punishment to do. So where's that balancing act? I think that's what both sides are trying to figure out right now.
10 Vols 7 wants to know a basketball question here. After seeing how winning the SEC tournament last year did absolutely nothing to our seeding, I'm convinced the bracket is already set going into that weekend. With that said, how much stock should we be putting into how well or poorly this team performs in the SEC tournament?
I think you should put a lot of stock into it just to get a barometer for how they're going to play. But no, I don't. After last year, I mean, I agree with the poster that Tennessee obviously got no bump from winning, beating Kentucky, winning the tournament, and, beating A&M in the championship game. So other than getting a gauge on how your team's playing, no. After last year, I agree.
But I'm not even sure you can do that, Rob. I mean, you'd like to think you can, but last year they were rolling. First round of the tournament, boom,
No,
still shooting the lights out.
You're right. You're right, AP.
It was the four of us out there shooting the ball. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I think for most teams, you should be able to get a feel for how you're playing, but this group, I'm not sure you can really know.
Well, and I think that's the challenge for a coach in trying to value the conference tournament, Rob, when you know your team is in, okay, and you're firmly in. Now, if you're Cinderella trying to get in, or if you're playing in a conference that you have to win the conference tournament to get in the tournament, then it means a lot. But what does the SEC tournament mean to Alabama? What does it mean to Tennessee? Is it worth 4 days or 3 days of getting beat up? I mean, I think that's something coaches have to manage and deal with and think about when you're already firmly in the tournament. What is the value of the conference tournament, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. And last year's, pounded that home to me, because Tennessee was in a spot where given a chance, they caught Kentucky on a Saturday. They won an SEC tournament, and a tournament. They didn't play Auburn, but Auburn had been ranked number 1, for a good chunk of the year, and Tennessee was the tournament champion. And it did nothing for them in terms of bumping them up on the seed line or anything. So I don't think it'll get to this point, but if I'm Rick Barnes or, if I'm Nate Oates, why do you not treat it like an exhibition match? Because what's the value? I mean, why risk, having somebody go out there and get hurt that you're not going to have the next week for when the tournament really does count, when they are handing out trophies?
Let's say on basketball here, CN31 says, can this team do what it did against Arkansas moving forward without Zakai Ziegler? Inside game, driving to the basket the way that would really complement the defensive play. Sure they can,
but Hubbard and I talked about this on the after the game on the full court press. It's going to be a different ball game if Zakai is out. When we're recording this, we're still waiting. Things obviously, there's some doom and gloom out there, but teams are going to, when teams start scouting Tennessee without Zakai, based off the Arkansas game, based off Auburn, if he doesn't play, then I think it's going to be a different animal, and I think it's going to get tougher.
And Arkansas, and I don't want to take anything away from what Tennessee accomplished Tuesday night, because that was a good win, and I'll give this team credit for handling, the Ziegler situation, because that's a tough deal to watch. That's as quiet, Rob, as you'll hear Thompson Bowling Arena when he was on the floor there. But that's not a great Arkansas defense. They're a high-scoring offense. They're an okay defense and not a great defense. And Tennessee's going to play a lot harder teams, and I would imagine Auburn is going to pressure the heck out of Tennessee. I think they're going to try to wear down, Santiago if he's playing point guard. I mean, maybe they don't go full court press the whole game, Rob, but they're going to pick up three-quarter court. They're going to make him turn. They're going to make him dribble right hand, left hand. They're going to make him work to get the ball across the timeline. And I think a lot of teams are going to do that, hoping that they can create a mistake or wear somebody down, whether it's, Vescovi or whoever is splitting times at that point guard position. I think that's the biggest change you're going to see in defensive strategy is they're going to pressure the ball and try to get Tennessee to start their offense further away from the basket because of the lack of point guard or of a true point guard.
Now, am I the only one that doesn't just love Jemai Meshack as like this bigger point guard if he can handle it?
You and Hubbard both made faces.
I mean, listen. I've only talked to that kid a handful of times. I absolutely love that kid. I love his mental makeup. I love what he's all about. He is clearly getting more and more comfortable on the offensive side of the floor. But can he run it? Can he run an offense? I think that Rick Barnes can run this thing, Rob, through a lot of guys, right? You can go through the four. You can run Josiah as a point forward in the half court set. But I think it still gets back down to who's going to create a play for you late in the clock when you've got to have a play. I mean, there's a reason Zakai Ziegler had, several double-doubles this year. It's because he could create points for you. Who is going to be that guy? Is that Meshack? Sometimes he can drive the lane and do some things like that, but I don't know that they've got a guy who you put the ball in their hand and say, go finish a possession late and get us a great look. Who's that going to be? I don't know who that is right now.
I'm not saying you put him in there for every minute, Rob. I'm just saying, I thought it was a nice change of pace when Zakai went down, and it to me it put him in a position to just kind of help run things, and versus okay, what's he going to do in the framework of the offense as someone who's not the point guard?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Hubbard. I love Jemai and can't say enough good things about it. I mean, just from a strictly skill standpoint, I mean, this may be oversimplified. I don't think he's got a strong enough left hand to really be your primary ball handler all the time. And I think if you maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it's a small sample size. I think ball handling wise, I don't know that he's there yet where you want him having the ball in his hands all the time. But man, he played it in a part-time role for the first time ever against a good Arkansas team and had 5 assists on Tuesday night. So I mean, tip of the cap.
I'm going to see if teams will let him continue to get straight downhill with drives the way Arkansas did. That's where he created it. And Austin, I think that's what you're talking about, creating some offense, because he's got the size that when he gets in the lane, he doesn't get lost, and he can do things that way, which I think is interesting to see. how do they create those matchups to where he can dive down the lane the way that they did. I mean, where he's at right now compared to a month ago offensively is a million miles, which is a credit to him, Rob, and a credit to the minutes he's logged and the experience he's gained from it. He's not. I mean, early in the year, it looked like it was a game of hot potato on the offensive end of the floor when somebody threw him the ball. It was like, get it out of my hands as quick as I can. Doesn't feel that way with his game at all right now.
Yeah, and it's the one silver lining from having Julian and Josiah miss, 4 and or 5 games is that Meshack is 100% clearly gained a lot of confidence from being thrown in the fire and playing 20 plus minutes a game. I mean, he's a different kid than he was 4 weeks ago.
Over under how many more games, Rob, until the GQ starts wanting to put him at defensive back as many steals as he's had lately?
Is it already happening? Is he not already penciled in for like starting free safety in the orange and white game?
Nickel.
They need some help back there.
I'll say this for this team: the silver lining is 2 guys. It's Meshack and what he's done, and the continued progression of Tobe Awanka. We talked about it on the message board. He didn't finish it, Rob, because I think he was shocked he was there. But the spin move he had to the baseline where he missed the layup, about broke the backboard because he was 1,000 miles an hour at the rim. That spin move is something we haven't seen. You can clearly see he's improving on that end of the floor, and his footwork's getting a lot better. I like the direction he's going as well.
All right, let's go on now to Southerner 98. When a school has to pay a fine or is deducted a percentage of the conference payout, as is laid out in the reported upcoming penalties for the university's investigation, where or whom does that money go to?
I mean, if my guess is if it's a reduced amount of what the conference gives you, the conference probably keeps that in their coffers, right? If you're paying a fine to the NCAA, I'm assuming you're writing a check to the NCAA, but I don't know the answer to that question.
Doolittle Vol says, do you think either one of the rule proposed for the running clock will pass? Has there ever been any discussion on the logical way to shorten games in terms of shortening halftime or excessive TV timeouts? It's a really popular topic that's going on right now with the expected proposed rule changes for the clock. But one thing's for certain, Brent, correct me if I'm wrong, ain't no way they're going to cut any TV timeouts out. That's where you make money.
I mean, what's the check? What's the proposed check next year for the SEC? $75 million, $74 million?
Yeah, around there.
Yeah, they're probably not going to give back a lot of TV time. I don't see that happening. I think there'll be some clock adjustment. I don't know that all of the proposed clock stuff will go through.
The running of the clock after the incomplete pass, no way in hell that passes.
I don't think so. No. I mean, I don't think that's going to take place at all. But I think there could be some adjustment with some of that running clock stuff, that out of bounds stuff, and some of those things. A little bit more like the NFL rules, which have shortened those games. The NFL rule stops the clock on incomplete passes, but they have
like not stopping the clock after a first down.
Yeah, things like that. I think you will see some kind of tweak potentially that way, compared to what you've seen in the past, I guess.
Can you imagine like the way they try to? And think about coaches using faking injuries, trying to slow tempo teams down. Like Heupel's like got the lead late. Hey, just run 50-yard bombs. Joe, overthrow them, and then the incomplete passes. It takes forever to get back to the line of scrimmage, and the clock runs out just chucking deep balls. You know what I mean? I mean, like there's too much wiggle room on stuff like that for that to be able to get through.
Yeah, that doesn't enhance the game. That doesn't help the enjoyment value of the game in any way, shape, or form. I don't think anybody's going to sign off on that rule.
Also, I think it's hilarious that like we're at a point in time now where everything's just like, oh yeah, for health and safety of the players. And bull crap. No, it's never about health and safety of the players. The NFL just added a 17th game in the regular season. Nobody cares about that. That's just funny. All right, let's go to Athron. A couple of questions. Austin, on J.J. Harrell, with him now on the boat, who are the other prime wide receiver targets?
Well, Tennessee's going to swing hard at Ryan Wingo to the end, swing hard at Mike Matthews. Both those will be dogfights. Tennessee's in a good spot with both. When you think about kind of where the recruitment is, but again, a long way to go in both. And then Amari Jefferson, in-state wide receiver from Baylor, is someone that will visit later this month that Matt's had an update on. Chad just wrote an update on. Just committed to Tennessee for baseball. So to me, those would be, along with Harold, would be your top four.
Headliners for this weekend's Junior Day.
There'll be a lot of 24s, a lot of 25s and just a few 24s. Most of those 24s that everybody's wanting to see get back in here will be coming for spring practice to see Tennessee go through meetings, go through his practice, go through the orange and white game, all those things. So this week will be more about future classes than it will be the class of 2024.
Yeah, if I were a 24, I wouldn't come to this Junior Day. I mean, I would want to see a practice. I would want to wait till 2 weekends later and come see a practice, because I think I'm going to get more value out of that in terms of trying to make my decision. For a 25 or 26, maybe it's an introduction to campus and you couldn't make it in January because you had basketball or another sport going on. So that makes some sense. But if I'm a 24 and Tennessee's in my top 10 or whatever edit I put out there of my top schools, I want to see them practice. I'm at the point I need to see them practice to where I can see how I fit in, see how meetings go, as opposed to just being there to get a tour of the facility and to see a hype video and just kind of hang out. I'm more about football than I am about a photo shoot or anything else at this point if I'm a 24.
Now that he's eligible, how much of a difference maker will Ahuna be? To put it short, he's a Major League Baseball prospect, number 22 on MLB Pipeline's list. He's probably got the best defensive glove infield-wise in the league, and he had 400 last year. He ended the season on a 19-game hit streak. He played for Team USA Baseball this past summer. He's going to be a difference maker for sure.
He is, and Tony Vitello had a chance to sit in. He came and read for Dr. Seuss Day at my kid's school earlier this week, and they were asking him, what are your favorite players, and he just raved about the talent level and the work ethic and kind of how Maui approached the 8-game ineligible run. And you can tell he thinks that this is a huge, huge deal, getting him eligible and getting him ready for that big conference run.
Yeah, as a pro, simply put, he's a pro. I mean, he's not a high school kid trying to figure it out. He's a pro who knows that this is his job and this is the last step in his job before he gets a big paycheck.
Last one here for Math Run. Thoughts on the wide-ranging start dates for spring practice this year? Missouri spring practices end before Tennessee's even start.
That's up to each coach. I mean, David Cutcliffe did that at Duke. They went in February to get it done. His belief was you get that done early, and anybody that needs to rehab an injury or anything like that has an opportunity to do that. Finish out classes in the semester, and then obviously it gives you a longer time to train into your summer workouts and everything like that. It's just a coach's preference. There are no guidelines that says when you can and can't run your spring practice and when you do your spring game. So it's just and Josh Heupel likes to go straight. He doesn't like a break in between. I mean, Tennessee for years, Austin, would practice 2 weeks, take a week off for spring break and come back and practice 2 more weeks, which was kind of bizarre. This is, we've seen out of Josh Heupel. He likes to run it all the way through. And so he's not going to start till after spring break is over.
See, and if I had another one of those years, if I was a coach and I had one of those years where you were going to be without like your whole secondary, your whole linebacker core, I think I'd like it in February and just kind of, get it over with and then get to training back with some of those guys. I just, I don't know. That's just kind of how I feel as far as timeline, but Tennessee's got a healthy team. So I'd rather go later if I was Tennessee.
Rob, let's get a couple of hoops questions here. Sam Smith, 2233. What is the team ceiling without Zakai Ziegler?
I mean, if you just base it on, I mean, we've got 38 minutes to look at, basically. They obviously look great against Arkansas. I mean, Tennessee can, I still think they can beat anybody on any night the way they play defense. I mean, I wouldn't look for them to rattle off 6 wins in the tournament without Zakai. I still think they can make the Sweet 16. We'll put it there.
And then last hoops question here. This is from Miami Joe. Did you guys expect more out of Julian Phillips so far this year? It's good to get him back. He's a really good defender, and of course he proved big last night just being back on the court. But overall, with Julian Phillips,
Yes, I expected more than what's been there. I mean, he's had flashes, Rob, but
yeah, I mean, I think we
I
all
expected more after the USC game.
Overall, he plays good defense and he's getting better at rebounding. But just in terms of a point score, I think we all expect a little bit more. Austin, back to you. This is iHeart Falls. Is Merklinger a realistic target, or is he leveraging UT to try to get some bigger offers?
no, he's very much a realistic target. He likes Tennessee a lot, likes Joey Halsley a lot. He's already got the Georgia stuff. I mean, it's just a matter of they're starting to turn the heat on him a little bit more. So no, I think that Tennessee's a real option there. If he was committing today, I actually think I would take Tennessee. But we'll see kind of where it goes, over the course of the next month, because he's going to take several visits.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm him and I have interest in Georgia, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Austin, don't you say, I know he's talking about making a quick decision. Don't you wait and see what that Georgia quarterback room looks like post-spring? When that next transfer window opens up, maybe that doesn't affect him. But at this point, I wouldn't rush if Georgia's a real factor for me. I kind of want to sit back and see what the Georgia quarterback situation looks like coming out of spring practice to kind of get a feel for where I would be in their pecking order.
Somebody has to leave, right, Hubs? I mean, there's no way that they go through another cycle and don't lose somebody. If they do, then those kids are just content riding the pine.
LF Vol says between 2022 and 2023, one could argue that Tennessee has recruited best with edge guys, even if they needed to add some bulk.
Yep.
With that starting to happen, describe how you expect Banks will use them, given past tendency to play bigger guys on the other side. It's hard to keep seeing them. Happy if we only rotate one position, and we need pass rush help.
Well, I think you'll continue to see them use them more and more and more, especially when you got guys that put on weight. Pierce came in a little bigger than Joseph's, but maturity-wise was not ready yet. Joseph's at the point was further ahead. He was not as big, but he's going to get passed by if he don't start to put on some weight, Hubs. I mean, like you look at, Caleb Herring's to put on 21 pounds. He was at 206 when he got here. He's 227. James Pierce up to 241. He was 227 last year. I know they had him listed at 240. He was not.
Right.
And so, you start seeing some of these guys take some drastic gains in the weight room. I've said all along, I think that Tennessee is most likely to take its next step as a football program when some of the younger defenders take the step. And if that happens, whether it's guys that are freshmen this year or were freshmen last year, then I think then this defense takes a huge step to improvement and being, I'm not saying the best defense in the country, but way more of a factor than just being someone who's trying to get in front of somebody to slow the other team down. So maybe get a 3 and out or a turnover and get our offense the ball back.
Yeah, and here's the other thing too. I would disagree with the question a little bit. I mean, what does Roman Harrison weigh, Austin? Give me a ballpark guess. You're much better at that stuff than I am. What would you put Roman Harrison's weight at?
225, 230.
Okay, so I mean they played Roman Harrison and Byron Young at the same time, right? So it's not like they lined. I mean, when they got into pass rush situations, and more often than not, they were sliding and playing Tyler Barron inside. So they were playing with two lighter ends. I mean, it wasn't like they were playing with 265 on one side and 220 on the other. So you could certainly see Joseph and Pierce on the field at the same time. And you could certainly see, Pierce and Tyree West. And I don't think that's that big of a deal. I think in year one, there was a little bit of play, a strong side end, a little bit bigger guy.
Yeah.
I think they kind of morphed in that a little bit and ended up playing with two true ends, particularly in pass rush situations. So I don't think anybody's going to feel left out, or they're going to rotate 4 rush ends at just one spot. I don't think that's the way they'll play defense.
Well, think about it too. Jaquan Blakely played that strong side end a year ago. Tyler Barron / Latrell Bumpus played it this past year. But again, on third down, you're in rabbits. You mentioned Tyree West is out there. You had Roman Harrison and Byron Young. You had Tyler Barron playing a 3 technique in rabbits. Like it all just kind of changes depending on down situation and package. And so yeah, there's a ton of time where there are multiple Leos out there at the same time.
Well, and when those guys mature mentally and start to figure it out, they understand 30 snaps are better than 50 snaps.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
And so play 12, 13 guys. And that's something that Rodney Garner did a year ago. I think everybody bought into it, and that defensive front was better for it. There's no reason why they shouldn't be in the same situation this year where you got 12, 13 guys playing, and you're not playing somebody 50 or 60 snaps in a game, particularly with the bodies that you have at those Leo spots and the outside guys.
All right, let's do one more here. This has been kind of a question we've gotten on the board a little bit, especially towards the end of the season. There's no doubting the athletic ability and speed and all that of a guy like D. Williams who can make some plays happen with the ball in his hands, but he's not getting any run at corner, right? Is there any possibility that Tennessee would look to try to have some packages for him to try to utilize that ability if he's not contributing in the defensive backfield?
I don't know why you couldn't use him in a way that Butch and them used Evan Berry there for a minute just on some jet sweeps. I mean, he is special with the ball in his hands. Again, though, that's up to the coaches. I mean, we all sit here and dream this stuff up and think about what could be all day long. But he's definitely special with the ball in his hands, Hubs. And for whatever reason, whether it's he can't mentally handle it or whatever, he's not been able to crack the real rotation at corner.
Yeah, and I mean, if you talk about doing that on offense, isn't that what you're talking about doing with Cam Seldon? Some of that stuff too. I mean, I think when you look at it, and this is probably something I will work on for a written story before spring practice starts. Who is this the most important spring for? Who's this quote a big spring for? Okay, I think you could talk about those young receivers that were freshmen.
John Campbell.
Yeah, but I mean, I think John Campbell. It's a big spring because Tennessee needs him to contribute. I'm talking about who's going to try to earn their way. D. Williams better show up this spring somewhere other than the punt return game if he's going to be a factor beyond a punt return. There's more competition at the corner with all those freshmen coming in. So you better do something to create a niche for yourself. And I think this is when you look at guys out there who needs to have a big spring, who must show that type of thing. I think this is a huge spring for D. Williams. He's a punt returner, okay? I think he's going to be the kickoff guy. But if it's beyond that, he's got to show that he can do something this spring beyond that, which obviously Tennessee had no confidence in him in the defensive backfield as the season progressed last year.
Exterior Home Solutions bringing you coverage here at the Volquest Podcast and the Volquest Mailbag Podcast. Give them a call today for a free estimate. That's today 655-524-5888. Big thanks to our friends over at Exterior Home Solutions.
By the way, to further answer how you shorten the games, don't go to the reviews like we could do right now and kill another 2 minutes on this podcast. If we want to go back and review our answers, whether they were good answers or not, that's the other issue that college football has to address. Austin, whether that's you do it the NFL challenge way or whatever you do, but don't stop the game 4 or 5 times a half, per half for reviews of plays. You're losing time there in those games, and that's something that's timing wise creates a difference between the college game and the NFL game as well.
And I'll make this brief because my voice needs a break. But I always tell high school ADs, because high school TV games take forever. No, they don't. Every high school team throws it now. Gibbs, your school, Hubs, chucks it all over the lot now, right?
And did last year.
And so what happens though? Most high schools aren't real proficient at it. I mean, I'm not saying they can't throw it, right?
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
But the percentage of completed passes is not 80%, 70%.
Right.
So incomplete passes stop games. Lack of defense anymore, and lots of touchdowns slow down games because you have all this time in between the extra point and the kickoff. I know people don't realize, but you let a minute, 2 minutes, that you do that times 10. All of a sudden that adds up to an extra 20 or 30 minutes of real time. You factor in the TV timeouts. They're not going away, as Eric said. They're not doing picture in picture like we do at Rivalry Thursday for the SEC games. So, like, it just boils down to all this stuff adds up to the game slowing down more and more and more and more. How do you try to rein it back in? The NFL does a masterful job at reining it back in. Maybe they just need to designate more people in Birmingham or wherever to go, we don't need to review that. That's a common sense. Buzz him in his ear and say, that's a first down. Let's keep going. There's no point to slow it down.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and that's an issue, and that's not going to go away. The same way. The injury factor is going to be out there. There's some execution of the game. I think you have to be careful, and I didn't mean to get on this tangent at the end here, but I think you have to be careful, Eric, that you don't attack the integrity of the game in some way by creating a clock rule to try to speed the game up. Make sure you don't change the integrity of the game in some form or fashion. I think the clock running on an incomplete pass affects the integrity and the strategy of the game. And I think that's something you have to be careful of in protecting the game and the competitiveness of the game itself.
100%. Look at what baseball's turned into in certain areas of the game. I mean, it is, in my opinion, truly affecting the game. And I'm not talking about a pitch clock. I really don't have much issue with a pitch clock, to be completely honest with you. But a bunch of the other stuff, like bigger bases, cutting down the distance between first and seconds, the stupid runner at second base rule. It's all stupid. It's not baseball. So that's just one example for another sport, but I completely agree. And while we're on this tangent, hey, let's stop going to the monitor so much late in basketball games. And for God's sake, don't do it in baseball either. We're 9-10 games in the season, and there's been more reviews in baseball than I'm comfortable with sharing. It's a little annoying. So
they'll review common sense things, and then when Tennessee actually goaltended the Arkansas kid last night, they didn't do anything about that.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you got 3 minutes on the clock in a basketball game, it's going to take you 30+ minutes to play it.
Yep.
I mean, because they're going to the monitor and they're going, and I'm all for getting it right. I want to get it right, but I mean, the Texas A&M game against the Tennessee Texas A&M, they went to the monitor after every possession for like 5 straight possessions.
Well, look at the Vanderbilt game. Look at the Vanderbilt game.
Go to the monitor. Go to the monitor.
It was 8:28. 8:28. Which, I mean, normally the game is 2 hours. So if it starts at 7, it ends at 9, give or take 2 or 3 minutes. Might be 9:03, might be 8:57. There was the under 4 timeout in the second half at 8:28. I know this because I was driving home, and I was like, this game is flying. The game still didn't end. The last 4 minutes, it took like 30 minutes almost to play. It didn't end to almost 9. I mean, like, it's amazing.
Yeah,
that's something they got to address, particularly in the game of football when you're trying to, where there's a clear emphasis on trying to speed some things up.
Yeah, and some of those proposals I think are okay. They don't attack the integrity of the game, but 2 of them, as Brent pointed out, I think you're changing a lot. You're changing too much. So we'll see. Again, big thanks to Exterior Home Solutions for bringing us coverage here of this podcast. For Rob Lewis, Austin Price, Brent Hubbs, I'm Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys for sending in those questions. Stay dialed in to Big Junior Day coming up this weekend. Of course, Tennessee at Auburn. Tennessee baseball is happening right now. All that and more right here on the Volquest YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe to the channel, like this video, and everything you could possibly want on Tennessee athletics. As always, it's at Volquest.com.